It began with a knock on the door, not too soft to wake most people, but loud enough to pull Detective Elena Marris from a shallow sleep filled with screams she hadn't yet heard in real life. She opened the door, still in her sweatshirt, and the officer on the other side didn't speak. He only held out a small, leather-bound journal sealed in a clear evidence bag. On the cover, scrawled in gold ink, were the words, "Property of Kira Holt." Kira Holt was 17. She'd gone missing 2 nights earlier after her parents reported she never came home from piano practice. No signs of struggle, no body, no ransom, just absence. And now this dot. Elena turned the bag over and frowned. Where did this come from? Dropped off at Precinct 5. No return address. A man left it on the counter and disappeared. We checked the tapes. He doesn't show up on any of them. Elena didn't speak. She turned and walked inside, flipping on a desk lamp. She opened the bag and slid the diary out like it might burn her. The pages smelled like dust and lavender. She skimmed the first few lines, ordinary teen stuff. Math exams, boys, boredom. But then, 5 pages in, her breath caught. Tuesday, March 18th. I see him again. The man in the brown coat. He followed her to the playground. She was wearing yellow. She didn't see him until it was too late. He strangled her behind the slide. She died with her mouth open. Elena's hands went cold. She reached for her phone and opened a missing persons report from 2 weeks ago. Emily Stokes, age 6, disappeared. On March 18th, last seen in a yellow jacket at a park near her house. Her body had been found the next day behind a playground slide. Mouth open, strangled. She flipped to the next page in the diary. Wednesday, March 19th. He did it again. The red-haired woman this time. Grocery store parking lot. She screamed, but nobody heard. So much blood, Elena's mind raced. That case had just been closed. Vanessa Karp, hair dyed red, attacked in a parking lot. Her throat slashed with a box. Cutter. No witnesses. No suspects. But the diary entries were dated before the murders happened. She kept flipping. Thursday, March 20th. I told my teacher about the man. She didn't believe me. She said I was imagining things again. I saw her die that night. It was her turn. No one even knew Kira had a teacher named Miss Langston. But Miss Langston had been found dead in her home on March 20th. Suicide, they'd said. Pills and wine. But now, Elena's fingers trembled as she reached the final written entry. Friday, March 21st. I wrote everything down, and it's still happening. No one listens. The man with no eyes said, I'll be next. I hope someone reads. This, I hope they stop him. Please, I don't want to see myself die. That was the last page. The rest of the book was blank. Elena leaned back in her chair, staring at the final sentence. The man with no eyes. That sounded like hallucination, delusion, but 3 murders had followed the diary's predictions exactly. It didn't make sense. The diary had no edits, no different inks, no visible signs of forgery, and Kira was still missing. She closed the book, heart pounding. Her mind kept returning to one disturbing question. How could a teenage girl know, in chilling detail, how people would die before it happened? The next morning, she brought the diary to a forensic handwriting analyst. She didn't mention the dates, only asked whether the diary had been written all at once or over time. The analyst was quick and precise. It's legit. Written day by day. No evidence of post-dating or tampering. Paper degradation aligns with the timeline. If she wrote this, she wrote it as it happened. Elena didn't respond. She left the lab and sat in her car. The possibilities splintered in her mind like cracked glass. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown. Number 1, new message, she's not done writing yet. Check the final page at midnight. She looked at the diary in her passenger seat. Flipped through it, still blank after March 21st. Her heart thudded against her ribs like a warning bell. Midnight was 6 hours away. She waited. The clock turned 12. Nothing happened. She flipped to the final page. Again, her breath stopped. Words were forming. The ink was appearing on its own, like an invisible pen dragging letters across the page, one by one. Saturday, June 21st. She's reading this now. The one with the tired eyes and too many dead friends. She's close. She's so close. But he's watching her. The man with no eyes. He's standing behind her right now. Elena dropped the diary. The room was silent, but the hairs on the back of her neck were rising. Slowly, she turned around, expecting nothing. But the window was open, and on the fogged glass behind her chair was a single, hand-shaped print. Elena didn't sleep. Not after that. The diary sat closed on her desk, the handprint on the window already fading in the morning light, as if it had never been there, but it had. She'd stared at it for hours, waiting for something. Return. Nothing did. Not yet, but the dread sat in her chest like a ticking bomb. She took the diary straight to digital forensics. They scanned it for reactive ink, invisible dyes, any chemical compound that could explain words writing themselves at midnight. The lab tech, a young guy named Jace, who thought everything was a prank until it wasn't, gave her the results by noon. No tricks, nothing reactive. It's not a magic book, if that's what you're hoping. I wasn't hoping, Elena said, staring at the diary like it might blink. Jace cleared his throat and added, but we ran the page under hyperspectral imaging, just in case. You should see this. He led her to the monitor and tapped the spacebar. A filtered image popped up, a high-contrast read of the final page. Beyond the legible message she'd read the night before, there were faint, spectral impressions, dozens of sentences, invisible to the eye, written and erased and rewritten over each other in swirling patterns. They're not all finished. Sentences, Jace said, squinting. Some are partial thoughts, like someone was rehearsing the diary before writing it. Or someone else was, Elena muttered. She took the image files, printed a copy, and stared at the largest impression. It wasn't the same message she'd read last night. It was different. You shouldn't be reading this. He sees through your eyes now. At 3:12 p.m., she was called to the scene of another murder. A woman named Chelsea Rain had been found in a park restroom, throat slit, body propped upright with her eyes taped open. There was no note, no witnesses. Elena felt her stomach twist until the coroner gave her a detail no one else had. She had lavender oil under her fingernails, the kind used in soaps or perfume. Elena interrupted. Or journals, the coroner added. Elena's eyes darkened. She pulled out Kira's diary and flipped to the newest page. She won't be the last. He makes me write it down. I hate it, but it keeps me alive. Until now, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another message. He needs stories. He feeds on futures. If you stop reading, he'll start writing his own. She dropped the phone by the time she returned to the precinct. 2 more detectives had read copies of the diary. Both of them went home that night. Only one woke up. Detective Ramos was found dead in his bathtub, wrists open, no water, only ink. Thick black ink pooled in the tub, staining his body like veins. Elena didn't believe it at first. Ink, not blood. But the sample analysis confirmed it's some kind of organic, pigment-rich compound made of proteins and elements not consistent with human biology. The next night, she opened the diary again, afraid of what she'd see. New words. He's learning to write without me. I feel him pulling away. I think you're next. She wanted to burn the thing, smash it, seal it in concrete. But every time she tried, it turned up again. In her car, in her freezer, once under her pillow. And then one night, she couldn't sleep. Just sat staring out her apartment window. She saw something move on the fire escape. A shape, humanoid. No face, no eyes, just a silhouette pressed against the glass. She ran to the window. It was gone. But smeared across the pane were 7 crooked words, scrawled in oily residue. You're writing it now, Detective Elena Marris. And when she looked down at her own hands, they were covered in ink. The next morning, Elena woke to find ink on her bedsheets streaked in patterns like fingerprints dragged across linen. Her hands were clean. No cuts, no bruises. But the smell of lavender hung in the air, heavy and wrong, like it didn't belong. She tore the sheets off, tossed them in the tub, then stared at herself in the mirror. You're writing it now. That sentence wouldn't leave her. It echoed behind her eyes. And the worst part, she couldn't remember falling asleep. Couldn't remember if she'd touched the diary. Again, she grabbed it from the desk and flipped to the final page. There was a new entry, but it wasn't written in the shaky teenage scrawl of Kira Holt. It was tighter, more controlled, almost like her own handwriting. Sunday, June 22nd. The man at the bus stop never saw it coming. The blade slid in through his side. Fast, no scream. He just collapsed like a broken puppet. The blood soaked the concrete and the birds kept singing. Elena's mouth went dry. She called dispatch, any 10 to 54s near downtown. There was a pause. Then, affirmative. One male, 48 years old, found at 6:13 a.m. near West Point. Bus terminal. Fatal stabbing. Still identifying. She ended the call. The diary was predicting again. But this time, it was her handwriting. She scanned the next page. Blank. No more entries. Just white space. She turned it over, then closed it, then opened it again. The next page was no longer blank. It's not prediction anymore. It's memory. She dropped the book. Backed away. This wasn't Kira's voice. Not anymore. This felt like her own thoughts echoing back written before she'd thought them. But worse, she was starting to remember. Flashes. A man standing at the bus stop. His grey coat. His breath fogging in the cold. The weight of something sharp in her pocket. Her feet approaching. No, she whispered, gripping the edge of the table. I wasn't there. I didn't do this. She went to the station, demanded. Surveillance footage from the bus terminal. The techs pulled it. She stood behind them as they reviewed the early morning feed. There, on the grainy screen 6:10 a.m. a woman passed behind the victim, hood up, head down. She never turned toward the camera, but Elena recognized the way she moved, her walk, her build, her coat. She'd worn that coat 2 days ago. Enhance it, she ordered. The technician tried, pulled the hooded figure's frame into focus. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The woman on screen had her face. Elena stepped back. Her chest tightened like a trap snapping shut. She didn't remember being there, but her body said otherwise. The diary said otherwise. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown. Number memory is just a story you haven't finished writing. He helps you finish. She tried calling the number back. No ring, no tone. Just a single sound in her ear writing. Not pen on paper. Not typing. Scratching. Like nails carving into wood. That night, she locked the diary in an evidence box at the precinct and signed it under her partner's name. Detective Harlan Reese. Reese was solid. Tough. Unshakable. She trusted him. If it stayed with him, she could rest. She just needed a break. One night of silence, except Reese didn't show up for his morning shift. They found him in his garage, motor running, car doors sealed, ink stains on his collar, and on the passenger seat. The diary opened to a new page. I warned her, but she locked me away. He doesn't like that. He writes faster now. Elena's badge was suspended the next day. Officially, she was under psychological evaluation. Unofficially, everyone thought she was losing her mind. Maybe she was, but she knew what she'd seen, and the next night, she dreamed of a girl sitting cross-legged in a black room docked Kura. She was older, maybe 20. Her eyes were hollow. He doesn't like when you stop reading, Kira said. He likes new pages. Elena knelt beside her. Where are you? Kira's lips didn't move, but the words came anyway. I'm in the end of the story, and the end isn't written yet. But it's getting closer. Elena jolted awake. There was ink under her fingernails, and 3 new words scratched into her bathroom. Mirror, page 21, next. Elena tore the mirror off the wall. It didn't stop anything. The next morning, she drove straight to her old precinct, despite her suspension. Walked past startled looks and muttered warnings, and beelined for the evidence locker. The chain of custody was broken. Someone had already taken the diary out. When she checked the sign-in sheet, there was no name, just a smear of black ink where a signature should have been. She checked the surveillance. Feed blank from midnight to 3 a.m. Total blackout. Cameras still worked before and after. Only that window was gone. And when she stepped outside the building to clear her head, the diary was waiting on her windshield, tied with twine, the cover slightly open. Windless day. Page 21 was already written. Monday, June 23rd. He made me write it again. The boy at the river. He had a red backpack. He dropped it when I pushed him. His skull cracked against the rocks. I didn't look back. I just walked home with his name stuck in my throat. Her stomach dropped. She'd heard the Amber Alert just hours earlier. A 10-year-old boy named Milo Spur, last seen near the riverbank trail, wearing a red backpack. She gripped the diary. So tight her knuckles whitened, then drove to the site, heart pounding. Crime scene tape fluttered between trees. Patrol cars littered the path. She forced her way through until she saw the stretcher. The boy's body was already bagged, but next to the blood-slicked rocks was a red backpack. She stumbled back, bile rising in her throat. Someone was making her remember things she hadn't done. Or worse, had she done them and forgotten? Was this still memory or prophecy? Then she saw it. On the boy's wrist, a woven bracelet made of ink-black string, 3 knots tied in it. She remembered making that kind of bracelet in middle school. Except she'd never seen this kid before, had she? A detective approached, confused to see her. On site. You shouldn't be here, Marris. You're off duty. She nodded blankly, turned to leave. But then he said, you might want to talk to the girl we found upstream. She's the one who called it in. What girl? He pointed. Teenager. Found her wandering the trail, barefoot. Doesn't remember her name. Says she sees people die before they do. Sound familiar? Elena's chest froze. Kiera. She sprinted toward the med tent, but by the time she arrived, was empty. No girl. Just a clipboard with intake notes. Unidentified female. Brown hair. Subject repeatedly mumbled. He writes what she won't. A paramedic nearby said she vanished from the cot during a supply run. I swear, we were gone 2 minutes. Number 1 saw her leave. It's like she ... dissolved. That night, Elena didn't sleep. She stayed at her kitchen table with every light on. Diary locked in a steel case next to her, wrapped in chains and zip ties and duct tape. She couldn't destroy it. Every attempt made things worse. Fire turned the cover to ash, but the pages always survived. Water just made the ink spread faster. One time, she'd tossed it from her balcony next morning. It was in her fridge at exactly midnight. She heard the click. The lock on the case had opened. She hadn't touched it. The lid lifted a few inches on its own, just enough for her to see that the pages inside had turned to 22, and it was blank. Then the pen next to her hand started to move. She didn't pick it up, but it moved, slowly, painfully. It scrawled a single line. You forgot what you did at 3:06 a.m. She stared at the clock. It was 2:59 a.m. No, she whispered, pushing back from the table. I didn't do anything. I'm awake. Then the lights flickered, and everything went black. She ran for her phone dead. She stumbled for the front door, locked from the outside. The scratching began again from behind her. In the dark, when the lights returned, the diary lay open. New lines filled the page. 3:06 a.m. She held the blade so tight it cut her hand. He told her it had to be this way. The man had to die. He was going to speak. She made sure he wouldn't. She left the body in the alley. No cameras, just the dripping sound afterward. He liked that part. She dropped the pen, stared at her, shaking. Hand, there was blood in her palm, still warm. She didn't remember holding a knife, didn't remember walking outside, but her shoes were wet with alley sludge. And in the distance, sirens began to scream. When she stepped out onto her balcony, hands still trembling, she saw them below. Police, tape, a stretcher, a body, and scrawled on the concrete in ink-black liquid. One final line, page 23, writes itself. Elena ran, not from guilt. She wasn't sure she even believed in guilt anymore, but from the unbearable weight of knowing something inside her was no longer waiting for permission. She didn't remember leaving her apartment. She didn't remember the man's face in the alley, but her hands remembered, her feet remembered, the diary remembered. She holed up in a motel 20 miles out, left no name at the front desk, paid in cash, brought nothing but the clothes on her back, her service pistol, and the diary sealed in a padlocked safe box, duct-taped shut 6 times over. And still, at midnight, she heard it unlocking. She bolted upright, gun drawn, breath caught, but nothing moved. The box remained closed. She crept toward it, hand shaking as she reached for the first strip of duct tape. Then a soft whisper came from inside the box. A girl's voice, shaky, terrified. "Kira," the voice whispered again. "Don't open it. Don't let him out again. Not tonight. He's almost full." She staggered back, heart hammering. Full of what? The whisper came slower now. Of endings. Of yours. The next morning, There was a knock at her motel door. She pulled her gun again, peered through the cracked blinds. A man in plain clothes, middle-aged, wiry. He held a badge between two fingers. FBI. She opened the door with the chain still on. Elena Marris, the man asked. No one by that name here. He smiled tightly. Then you won't mind if we talk anyway. Something in his voice felt ... wrong, not threatening, not hostile, just rehearsed. Who are you? He held out a business card. No name, just a singular, stylized eye, black ink, no iris. I read your file, he said, not the official one. The other one, there's another file. He tilted his head. We have pages of it. He glanced past her to the diary on the table. You know he's almost done, right? Elena said nothing. The man smiled. You're not the first. Kira wasn't either. There was a boy before her, and a woman in 1982, and someone before that. It always starts the same. A journal, a vision, a warning. Then it writes you. Elena's mouth went dry. You stop it. The man's expression darkened. No one ever has. He handed her a second card, this one blank, except for 3 handwritten words. Page 24, bleeds. When she looked up, he was gone. That night, she didn't sleep. She watched the box. It didn't move. But when she blinked, the diary was outside of it. Sitting neatly on her pillow, open, she tried not to look. She told herself not to read, but the page drew her in. Tuesday, June 24th. They found her in the motel. Eyes open, gun on the floor, but there were no signs of forced entry. No struggle, no wounds, just one thing out of place. The mirror was shattered, and her reflection was still in it. Her skin crawled. She looked across the room. The mirror was whole. But she stood and walked toward it anyway. And her reflection didn't move. She stepped left. It stayed still. She lifted her hand. The reflection watched her, then blinked. But she hadn't. She stumbled back, trembling. The reflection smiled. Then it whispered, You're not writing this anymore. She grabbed the diary and flipped the pages wildly. Some were blank, some had her handwriting. But then page 24 ink was still drying. I watched her stare at me. She thought I was her. But she's been gone since. The alley, I wear her better now. The gun was just a formality. She never had a choice. The rest of her is here trapped in the spine of the story. With the others behind her, the mirror cracked. But her reflection stayed whole, and it turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the glass. And the diary whispered one more sentence, ink etching across its closing page. Page 25 ends the lie. Elena didn't breathe. She couldn't. The world on the other side of the mirror faded to dim static, like a memory degrading second by second. She pounded her fists against the glass, screamed until her throat burned but no sound escaped. Her reflection, the thing pretending to be her, was gone. It had walked out of frame, out of her life, into her name, and she was trapped in her place inside the diary. She stood alone in a hallway made of paper. Pages stretched into infinity. Every step echoed like boots in a tomb. The air smelled of lavender, ink, and something else. Something ancient and damp, like the breath of something that had waited too long in the dark. A voice whispered above her, not Kira, not hers, but old, hollow. Almost done now. She turned, eyes wide, and saw the other pages fluttering open. Around her, as they turned, rooms revealed themselves, rooms made from words and entries and memories. One held a version of her crying in the precinct bathroom. Another showed her drawing a gun on a mirror. Another one far worse held the alley, her hands, the man, the blood. A story made from everything she thought she could forget. She ran down the spine of the book, through entry after entry. Some were hers, some were Kira's, some belonged to people she'd never met, but they were all dying, or had died, or were about to. Then she saw her, Kira, sitting on the floor, knees tucked to her chest, her skin paper-thin and translucent, like she'd been fading for years. "I tried to warn you," Kira whispered without lifting her head. "Why me?" Elena said. "Because you kept reading. I didn't know," Kira looked up then, and her eyes were filled with letters. Scrawled, cramped, desperate letters. None of us did, until it was too late. He doesn't write stories, he writes us. Every decision, every breath, every thought. But only if we let him in. That's what the diary is. Elena knelt beside her. "Then how do we get out?" Kira blinked. "You don't. Not if he's still watching. You can't escape the story while someone else is still reading it." Elena's heart dropped. Outside the mirror, in her body, the thing pretending to be her was still reading, and now it was writing too, at that exact moment. Somewhere far away back in the real world, the police report was being filed by the Alanocopy. A new case, a new murder, another victim, same weapon, same signature. It was escalating, becoming public. Viral, the story was growing, and as long as people were paying attention, he was getting stronger. "You said someone escaped before." Elena whispered. Kira didn't answer, but then a new voice spoke from the shadows. "I did." Elena turned sharply. A woman stepped out, older, worn down, covered in old bruises that never healed. Her left eye twitched constantly. "I stopped reading, stopped writing. I starved him, but he waited 30 years, until the next one picked it up, and you survived." She laughed bitterly. "Do I look like I survived?" Elena felt the walls tremble, pages shook. Something was moving through the spine, now something huge. A presence, a shadow between every line. The sound of a quill dragging through flesh echoed behind them. Kira grabbed her hand. "There's one way, but it's cruel." Elena stared. "I don't care. You have to flip the story. Make the reader the character. Make the writer the prey. It only works once, and only if someone outside believes it's real. You trap him in their head the way he trapped us in his. You want me to write a new ending?" "No," Kira said softly. "You have to be the ending." Suddenly, Elena was back in the motel room. Her body, her hands. The mirror was gone. Shattered, the reflection nowhere to be seen, but the diary open on the bed was filled with names. Real names of people in power. A judge, a senator, a journalist, all already dead, or about to be. The ink was hers. The writing not Dot, and next to the diary, a pen hovered an inch above the paper, writing by itself, until it paused, and turned Dot like it sensed her, then began again. She thought she had escaped, but he let her, so she could write the final page, and trap someone else suddenly. The pen stopped, and the room grew cold, because someone was reading the story, now not Elena, not Kira. And as the diary turned one last page, the final sentence appeared. Page 26 is already inside you. The room pulsed, like breath, like the diary had lungs and was exhaling ink into the walls. Elena staggered back, realizing something was wrong, not just with the book, not just with herself, but with you. Whoever was reading now, she felt it. The shift, the thinning barrier. The story was no longer hers. It had moved forward. You were now inside it, and it was inside you. The diary turned again, page 26. Wednesday, June 25th. They kept reading, even when they were warned. That's how he steps through. Curiosity, fascination. They follow the story until it begins writing them. He watches from behind their screens now. He smiles every time their eyes move to the next word. That's the real doorway, Elena. The walls peeled like pages. Her surroundings began to shift violently. The motel warped, the light bent sideways, and all sound became ink dripping onto the floor in steady beats, like a countdown. She ran to the window, flung it open, but outside wasn't a street anymore. It was a hallway of books, thousands, all of them unopened, waiting, whispering, breathing, and one was marked with your name. Kira said it only works once. Elena said aloud, the wind now a scratching whisper in her ear. If I finish this the right way, I can shut the book, seal him in someone else. Just once, her hands moved. She didn't control them. The diary flipped again, page 20-7. Her fingers wrote, you are the story now. You, the reader, the watcher. You've seen too much. You've looked too long. You've breathed in the ink. And now he knows your name. Elena's voice cracked. Don't do this. But the words didn't stop. The next line was not hers. It was the thing's. Heal. Knock tonight, soft. The third knock means open. And if you don't heal, still come in. She screamed and slammed the diary shut. Everything stopped. No. More pulsing no, more ink, just silence. Her breath returned, and for a moment, just a moment, it felt over, until she looked at the back of her hand. 3 small words were written there in fresh black ink. Keep reading, please. And in your hands, you feel something warm. A leather cover, a gold ink title. Your name is on the spine. The cover is smooth, too smooth, like skin stretched too tight over something that wants to move. You don't remember picking it up. You don't remember placing it in your lap, but there it is. Elena's diary, except it's not hers anymore. It's yours. The ink is still wet. The gold letters shimmer. You run your fingers over the title, half expecting it to burn. It doesn't. It just hums like a slow, distant heartbeat. You hear the whisper now, clear, inside your ear, inside your skull. Last page, last page, last page. Your hands move before you can stop them. Page 20-8 blank dot. Then one word writes itself in the center of the page. Knock. You feel a chill crawl down your neck, and then one knock, you freeze. 2 knocks, louder, closer, your breath catches in your throat. You stare at the door. No one's there. 3 knocks. The sound comes not from the door but from behind you. You spin around, nothing. Then you look down. The diary has turned another page on its own. Page 20-9. The words are scrawled fast, chaotic, like someone writing while running. He comes through endings, not beginnings. That's why he makes you finish the story. That's why he begs you to stay. Because every ending is an invitation, every final word, a door. That's how he enters, through the silence that comes after the last sentence. And then, nothing. blank. No more words, no more pages, until one final sentence etches itself slowly across the bottom corner of the last page. Each letter burns into your eyes. Thank you for reading. I'm inside now. The diary slams shut, and the knock comes again, this time from inside the walls. Inside the screen. Inside you, and then without sound, without warning, without even breath left in the world, everything goes dark forever.